Had somebody in the comments ask, as this was included, I think, in a blooper once, this is Simply Balanced sparkling water. That is Target brand sparkling water, citrus flavor, although I tend to get as many of them as I like in different flavors. It's really quite good. Suggest you try it. Not sponsored by it. Trust me. Hello there, heroes. I'm the Orange Ranger, and welcome to another Power Rangers Hyperforce session review. As you can see, I am still working my butt off trying to get these Hyperforce reviews caught up. Peter Sudarso was back from his one-week filming break last week, so it was time to see just what was going on with Marv. Let's find out what was up with the Red Hyperforce Ranger in the 12th session of Hyperforce, one that had us in for a silver surprise. With their mission in Camelot complete, the Rangers have returned to the Hyperstream and have been taking things easy for a few days, working on a plan to find Marv and the Alliance. Jack wonders if they can use the morphing grid to scan for Marv, and he asks Alpha. Alpha says that is not how he operates. What he does is scans the timeline for anomalies, and that's how he's been detecting the Alliance. They ask him to do so, and since Alpha can't detect any, he concludes that the Alliance ship must still be in the time stream. Vesper and Chloe decide to try the power of prayer. Well, kind of. They join hands and try to send some kind of telepathic message to Marv. Jack finds that all very silly, but Eddie gets inspired and makes him join in. This actually works, as Alpha picks up a very faint energy signature from Marv's morpher, and it's located inside the time stream. To clarify, the time stream and the hyperstream are not one and the same. The time stream is a linear stream that only is impacted by time. When you travel through it, you can travel from one time to another, back and forth, but you are in the same physical location, simply traveling through time. The hyperstream is a higher dimensional plane that melds time and space. So when you travel through it, you can decide not only when you're going, but also where. Almost as important, this is a dimension that only the Rangers have access to. The Alliance ship, the one that they stole from the Time Force Academy, was an older ship that cannot access the hyperstream. The Rangers ask Alpha if they can jump directly over into the time stream to try and get Marv. Yes, but it turns out the process is very dangerous and complicated. Eddie starts doing some calculations and realizes that they can make the jump, but it's basically going to use every bit of energy that the ship has. Vesper asks if she can be plugged into the ship's energy grid to contribute some of her energy to the effort. Yes, but that is actually also incredibly dangerous, and Jack says that since Eddie has confirmed that they can make the jump with the power they have, that's not a card that they need to play just yet. All of that thinking is then interrupted when the Rangers receive a transmission from Jen Scott. As a matter of fact, heroes, they received this transmission.
Rangers, I received your message regarding Marv. I regret that I cannot come to your assistance directly, as I'm still leading the battle against the Alliance here in this time. Their leader may be gone, but their numbers are many and their forces are strong. But I've sent out a message through the time stream, contacting all of our friends and allies to help us locate Marv. But should the call go unanswered, remember, Rangers, you are not alone. You have each other. Don't forget, the future is unknown. I will see you all again soon. Good luck, Rangers.
Yes, Erin Cahill actually took some time out of her schedule to record a quick little guest spot as Jen Scott. To me, this was the highlight of the session, and yes, I am talking about that in regards to other things that are going to be happening later on. It just expanded the world so much. If you think about it, this is the first time we've ever gotten to literally lay eyes on the world of Hyperforce beyond just our own imagination. We actually saw the battle waging on behind her, the battle between the Alliance and Time Force, that shows us that that battle is still waging on in 3017. And of course, Erin's performance as Jen was as spot on as it always is. You'll notice that Jen said that she sent out a message to all of their Time Force agents out in the field, asking for their assistance if they were available. Vesper wonders if they should wait for any of those agents to arrive, or go ahead and make the jump. The Rangers decide that it's better not to wait. Those agents can still come and find them where they are, follow their trail, so they decide to go. They do successfully make the jump to the time stream and end up directly in the Alliance ship's wake, which destabilizes them. Eddie activates a console that allows them to see the waves of the ship's wake and then starts navigating the ship around them. Alpha informs the Rangers that it will be impossible to teleport any of them to the Alliance ship, seeing as its shields are raised, but he can raise their own shields for about half an hour. We finally cut over to Marv, who we find in a large, purely white and very cold room, almost like some kind of ice jail. Marv gets up and starts searching around the room looking for weapons or a way out, but he can't find one, and all he hears is the now familiar of the putties who have been tormenting him by throwing rocks at him. He manages to catch one of the rocks and tucks it away for later to use as a possible weapon. He tries to call Alpha, but as Malika says, even though this is the 57th time he's tried, he still can't get through. Suddenly, the putties scatter, and the Alliance leader walks up to the cell, asking Marv if he's tired of this yet. Marv says he's not going to tell him anything, but the leader says Marv wasn't even the one they wanted. We wanted your android. Now, funny enough, this term actually better applies to Vesper than it does to Alpha, who is a robot, not an android. But I do have to say in this case that he was actually referring to Alpha. Marv tries to trick the Alliance leader by saying that he can go ahead and scan for Alpha, see if he's nearby, if he could just get a signal outside of the ship, but it doesn't work. Marv continues with his trickery, trying the classic fine, you win strategy, saying that if he lets Marv go, Marv will go to the Hyperforce Ranger ship and get Alpha and then order the Rangers to back off and let the Alliance do what they're going to do. But you see, that's not going to work for the Alliance leader because now things have gotten personal. He doesn't just want to complete their mission, he wants the Hyperforce Rangers erased from time. As a matter of fact, he's even been contemplating going back in time and being the very one that causes all of their pain. He can go back in time and kill Joe, Marv's brother. He can go back in time and be the one that kills Chloe's parents. Heck, he could even go back in time and punt Jack's robo-dog Forge. Marv tries not to let this shake him and continues with the "listen, I'm on your side now" strategy. And that actually starts to seem to work as the Alliance leader asks what Marv could possibly do to help him. Marv says that he can tell the Alliance leader how the Rangers have been tracking them because they have a tracking device on the Alliance ship. He's not going to tell the leader where the tracking device is. That's his last bargaining chip. That leaves the Alliance leader unconvinced, and he blasts Marv, hitting him for 16 damage. Marv is down to 4 energy. Marv stays the course, telling the leader he's got nothing to lose now, and besides, he was never really that close to the Rangers anyway. The leader has his minions start looking for the tracker, but Marv sits in the corner and says he's done talking until he gets let out of this cell. It's at this point that the other Rangers jump into the time stream, which means that when we cut over to Marv, we did also cut back a little bit in the story. The leader detects this and tells Primator to use the invisiportals to go and board their ship. Marv takes another chance for a little dig, saying that the Rangers are totally going to see that coming. I'm the one who has the real key. Vesper takes over driving the ship when suddenly Marv walks into the control center, saying how great it is to be back. Marv. Eddie says that this doesn't feel quite right, so Chloe decides to quiz him. What's their secret move? He does kind of a half-circle moonwalk, but obviously that's not it. Come on, Marv, the secret move, the one that you and Chloe always try to do and hardly ever pull off. For the record, it's the Hurricane Whirlwind while he spins around in it with his claws. Marv says, oh, right, that's the one where you fire arrows and I stand there and tell you what a great ranger you are. So the Rangers obviously realize that this is Primator, and Eddie remembers from history that Primator can't stand mirrors. There are no reflective surfaces around him, so he decides to run to the medical bay to go grab a mirror. Chloe keeps Marv in the area in the meantime as Marv starts chatting with Alpha. Eddie then gets back from the medical bay and sticks a mirror right in Primator's face. Now, as you old school Power Rangers fans like me might remember, when Primator sees his reflection in the mirror when he's transformed, he remembers how ugly these people he's transformed to are and turns back into his natural, more beautiful monkey state. Now revealed, Primator grabs Alpha and says he's taking him. Chloe grabs Alpha as well, and Vesper has the ship do a triple barrel roll to try to throw everybody off balance. The ship ends up upside down, though to be fair, I would imagine that this ship has artificial gravity, so I don't really think that should have mattered. Jack arrests the monkey, but showing how kind of a silly move that is, Primator just turns into Forge, and the restraints fall right off. Knowing that this isn't his dog, Jack takes an idea from the Alliance leader and tries to punt the thing, but Forge dodges pretty easily. Vesper says, hang on, and has the ship do a double barrel roll the other direction, which also would probably re-invert it, I think. I'm not really sure. Alpha has a fantastic idea for the Rangers while fighting this gigantic monkey monster. Freaking morph already! Primator turns back into Chloe's mom, but before the battle begins, we cut back over to Marv. Trust me though, heroes, this is worth doing. As Marv looks around his cell for anything that he can use, he suddenly hears shuffling all around him. He starts tapping on the walls, trying to get whatever it is to respond. Instead, whatever it is starts trying to short out the bars of the cell, getting kind of zapped himself in the process. The zap of electricity actually gives Marv a bit of an idea, and he takes out the rock and starts tapping on his morpher to try to open up a little space between panels so he can get a wire out and try to recharge it that way. But before he can pull that off, the light in the ship shifts, and suddenly he can see a Time Force Power Ranger. A silver Time Force Power Ranger, which is kind of interesting, you know, considering that Marv and, I don't know, any of us have never seen a silver Time Force Ranger before. Believe it or not, this gets even better. The Silver Ranger asks Marv for his morpher, saying he needs to use it to try to track down the Hyperforce ship. That's totally not suspicious at all. Marv asks why he would need to find the Hyperforce ship. The Silver Ranger responds by removing his helmet. And it's Joe, Marv's brother. But in fact, Marv was not the only person involved to be surprised by the presence of his brother. Peter was as well. That is right, heroes. In a move that was completely unannounced before the session and only known by a few members of the Hyper RPG staff, Yoshi Sudarso, who played Koda in Power Rangers Dino Charge, took a seat on the Hyperforce set to portray Joe, the Silver Time Force Ranger. In fact, he was even cosplaying as Joe, wearing a silver Time Force jacket that he had told Peter he was doing for a photo shoot, and sporting silver hair, though in that case he insisted that that was just a coincidence. So yes, my friends, now both of the Sudarso brothers have portrayed two different Power Rangers. But let's get back to the story, shall we? Joe teleports into the cage and tries to cut the energy bars open, but before he does, he hears the putties coming and motions to Marv to be quiet about him before disappearing. The putties, thinking Marv was making the noises that they were coming to investigate, start throwing some more rocks at him. But then Marv gets a brilliant idea to flip the deception coin around to the other side. He starts pretending to be Primator, jumping around and smacking his butt and telling them the prisoner escaped. He threw me in here and he ran around the corner. Go get him! Go, go! 3 of the 4 putties are stupid enough to fall for this and go to chase him, while the 4th one isn't so sure and stays around. But a single putty is more than not enough for Joe, who grabs him and fries him on the energy bars. Have no idea what more than not enough means, but... In fact, the putty's body also gives Marv a way out of the cell, as he can use it to block the energy bars and then crawl underneath. He does so, but when the 2 of them hear Scorpina coming, he actually dives right back into the cell. Why? Because he figures that this was all a trap and he is officially done with this. He tells Joe that he'll even join the Alliance if that's what they want him to do. But they just cannot keep using his brother's image to fool him like this. Joe insists that he's the real deal this time and even apologizes again for being gone so long, but Marv just throws his rock at Joe's head, Joe catching it. He's insistent, saying that he knows this has been hard for Marv, but they need to get to the ship's control room and it's a long way from here, so they need to go now. Marv decides, you know what? Fine. If this is an Alliance plot, it would be better for him to know the details anyway. So he goes back out of the cage one more time, but he stops and tries one more time to try to jumpstart his morpher on the energy bars, but nothing happens. And as a matter of fact, in what was probably good role-playing by Peter, Marv jumpstarting his morpher kind of wasn't really necessary, seeing as the chat had given him more than enough energy to morph. Back on the Hyperforce ship, Jack launches himself at the momster, trying to scissor kick it into a bulkhead, but he misses. Eddie gets an idea. Primator's been transforming into a person based on being one-on-one with someone to try to distract them. If he's surrounded, he's not going to be able to pick somebody to transform into. So, the 3 of them surround him, with Vesper still driving the ship, and indeed, he can't pick an image to transform into. So instead, he just blasts all 3 of them for 16 damage. Yeesh. Speaking of Vesper, she decides to get involved, handing Eddie the wheel, for lack of a better term, kneeing Primator in the stomach and pinning him down. She says that he better tell them how to get onto that Alliance ship, or this ends right now. Primator says he's not saying a thing, so Vesper smacks him with her disc. Chloe tries her Eye of the Phoenix attack to knock Primator out. It does work for a second, but he very quickly recovers, jumps on the central command table, zaps everything in sight, and then runs into the ship, zapping everything in sight. The ship gets knocked off course, so they fall right back into the Alliance ship's wake, which starts causing even more damage. Then Primator runs back in, basically doing laps in the ship now, and blasts them for some more damage, so you know they're not really having the best day. Vesper wonders if the Rangers could evacuate to their Zords, but it turns out that only she and Chloe have enough energy to activate them, and besides that, they're in the time stream, so it's not like they have anywhere to go. Desperate, Vesper decides that the best course of action is to ram the Alliance ship with the Hyperforce ship. This will require each of the Rangers to roll 1 dice. And on their 4 dice, they roll a 7. That's out of a possible 24. Something you folks need to understand if you're not really familiar with RPGs or play them or anything like that, is that when the players miss a roll really badly, like rolling 7 out of a possible 24, it gives the GM free rein to really mess with their day. All of the Rangers looked very skittish as Malika had the ability to really screw with things. However, she decided to be merciful. All that happens is that the Hyperforce ship instead gets caught in the Alliance ship's wake again, and further destabilized, they are thrown far back from the Alliance ship. They are still pursuing it, they can still see it, but it is starting to gain away from them. Alpha doesn't believe that they have enough energy left to even teleport a single person from anywhere to anywhere. But between worrying about energy levels and where the Alliance ship is and everything, Primator is starting to feel just a little bit neglected. So he runs back around and causes some more damage, zapping some more things. He's located near that pocket training dimension, which gives Jack an idea. Maybe if they can manage to get him shoved in there, they can create a simulation that would make it seem like he succeeded and destroyed the Hyperforce ship. Back over with the brothers She, Marv asked Joe if he would be able to transfer some energy over to his morpher. However, Joe is much more concerned in locating Alpha. Weren't the Alliance also trying to get their hands on Alpha? Very, very interesting. Marv starts to transfer the coordinates of the Hyperforce ship, which I guess his morpher would know where they were. Anyway, he starts to transfer those coordinates over to Joe, but then they're interrupted by a ship-wide call from the Alliance leader, announcing that he wants their shields reinforced and to remain raised, which means they will not be able to leave the ship or communicate outside of the ship anyway. Marv finds a console and starts working on trying to get the shields down. Joe says they need to go now, but frustrated, Marv takes off his morpher and just throws it at Joe. If this is what you want, here, take it, I'm trying to work on this. However, Joe points out that Marv is standing at a communications console and he's not going to be able to lower the shields from there. He then gives Marv his morpher back, interesting, and says that they really need to go now, but they're also going to need to be quiet about this since Marv is, more or less standing on death's doorstep. This is really heavy, interesting plot stuff. Why don't we take a quick break and think about it? Joe and Marv sneak down a hallway, and then Volcanos happened. Okay, so a little bit of a disclaimer here. This is something that's going to pop up from time to time in these reviews, so I figure I should just go ahead and be clear with it. I have made mention in multiple other of my videos before that I do not have the best quality internet here in the backwoods of southern Georgia. It is able to support the stream of Hyperforce, but if anything happens to the connection, it lags out and I have trouble with it. It happened to right here, and the only way I could get the stream back was to refresh, which means I lost track of the story for about 20 to 30 seconds. When I refreshed the stream, Volcanos was standing there. But this actually leads into something else that I've been meaning to tell you folks. I've been hearing from a lot of you that the only way that you keep up with the story of Hyperforce is watching my reviews, and that honestly means more to me than I think you people realize, that I have been a conduit with which you've been able to keep up with this story. However, my reviews are only a reflection of the amazing work that HyperRPG is doing. If you can, you folks should really be watching either the live stream, the Twitch video on demand, or the YouTube uploads a week later. I mean, there's a way for you to be involved with the official product there. I'm not saying don't watch my reviews. I'm very glad that you do. Just that you should really be supporting the official product any way you can. If my videos are the only way that you can keep up with Hyperforce, consider making even a small monetary donation to them. To be perfectly honest with you, knowing their operations and their needs, I'd almost really rather you donate to them as opposed to me. Just $1, $5, just anything you can spare. If you're not able to watch and support them that way, just consider doing that, because my reviews are a great way to share this story. But if you're only watching me, I feel like they're not getting any of the support from that. And I really don't want to feel like I'm taking anything away from HyperRPG in doing these reviews. I'm just trying to find another way to share this story, what I think about it, since I know people are curious, and just share the Power Rangers love. So support those folks. And remember, every once in a while there might be a little gap in my story that can only be filled by watching them. I've even mentioned that before with things that I was able to see and just said you needed to see, like Vesper singing or all the Rangers singing with Lady Guinevere. Just watch. There's no way for the two of them to get around Velkanos, who also has a large squad of putties with him. At this point, even Marv has to look at his morpher and realize that he does have enough energy to morph. However, doing so would be an incredibly loud and flashy thing for him to do, and he's trying not to draw any attention. Plus the fact that morphing would only heal him 10 energy up to 14. Joe sneaks around to the Alliance's training area, which, unlike the pocket dimension, is just a gymnasium, and he throws a barbell and a mirror to create a distraction. A group of putties head over that way to investigate. Marv decides to risk morphing it, calling it a flash morph. Basically what we'd call an instamorph. Maybe something like this. He heals back up to 14 health and decides to risk an attack, going after the 9 putties that are checking out the gymnasium. How is he going to deal with 9 putties with only 14 health? He decides to attempt a lunging, fencing type attack with his claws, basically skewering through all 9 putties at once. This works. Velkanos comes running to investigate and summons 5 more putties. Realizing he's now basically completely outclassed, Marv goes right back to the no, still on your side, I'm on your side, it's fine. Listen, those putties attacked me and I had to defend myself. I only got out of the cage because Primator let me go. I made a deal with him. I'm totally on your side now. He then rolls a 2 trying to convince Velkanos of this, so of course it doesn't work. Velkanos forms a fire rock and throws it at Marv, hitting him for 12 damage. Yes, Marv is unmorphed, darn near unconscious, and sitting at 2 health. Joe attacks from invisibility, doing a sword slash that basically just catches Velkanos on the shoulder and doesn't do any real damage. In fact, all it really does is alert Velkanos that there is someone else on the ship. He sends the putties to go find Joe, and we cut back over to the other Rangers. Vesper asks Alpha if there's any way they can get a message over to the Alliance ship. Alpha's response is pretty simple. There is an 8-foot-tall monkey wrecking everything that there is on our ship. Can you please focus? Eddie runs back over to the pocket dimension with the idea of just opening it, throwing Primator inside, and sealing him in there. However, the dice had other plans. Primator hears Eddie running up, matadors him, and seals Eddie inside the pocket dimension. All Eddie can see is a terrible dark blackness. Besides that, just purple grid lines. Alpha makes a helpful suggestion to the other Rangers. Maybe we should try to get the monkey monster off the ship. Chloe remembers that Primator or Primator, whichever it is, I've realized by this point my pronunciation of it is going back and forth, and I'm not entirely sure which one is correct. Anyway, she remembers that the monster is very fond of bananas, so she runs over to the Insta-Kitchen, which can make food, it's just stuck in health food mode, and starts having it crank out bananas. As she makes this giant pile of bananas, Jack pulls his Creus hammer and bashes the monster back towards the bay doors. Chloe gets over there with the bananas to bait him over there, and realizes he's standing exactly where he needs to, so she just flings the bananas at him. Vesper then comes over the intercoms and tries to tempt the monster over to the back of the ship where the bananas are. Except that he's already standing there. In the confusion, Primator just throws the bananas back and starts running through the ship again, blasting everything again and heading for the main control area to grab Alpha. Alpha tries to stop the monster, so Primator grabs him and starts opening an invisiportal to escape. Chloe, bracing herself for the emotional impact of this, launches an arrow at the monster, hitting it right in the back. Then Jack throws himself at them to get Alpha away, and now Primator is holding onto Jack instead. Vesper steps away from the controls for a second and slices the monster with her axe for 12 damage. She then retakes the controls and tells Chloe and Jack to hang on to something as she opens the bay doors. Primator starts getting sucked towards the back of the ship, but the Rangers are as well, trying to hang on. Alpha reminds Chloe, didn't you get some kind of pink mystical gem from Arthur and Guinevere? She pulls it out and activates it with her morpher, and it turns into a big ball of pink energy that encircles her in wind. As she emerges from the wind cloud, her pink ranger suit is now covered in very regal, sculpted armor. She has winged shoes, and her bow is now an ornately decorated compound bow. Chloe has activated her Battleizer, which for the sake of simplicity, I will be calling the Pink Battle Warrior. Primator is so surprised by this that he reverts to his monkey form. Chloe fires a large energy arrow at him, and the wind from it actually opens every door in the ship. So Eddie gets freed from the pocket dimension as well. Primator gets hit by the arrow and is flung out into the hyperstream, either now completely lost in time and space, or if he's able to somehow survive exiting the hyperstream, ending up somewhere completely random in time and space. Alpha screams for Vesper to close the bay doors, and she does. However, their ship is now once again a hot mess, and the Alliance ship is getting further away. On that ship, Joe is attacked by the putties. His invisibility lasts 3 rounds, so it expires here, and he's able to be seen. He uses a rhythm breaker attack to try to attack Velkanos, but Velkanos counters and throws lava rocks at him, but Joe dodges those, so nothing happens. Marv, being in far too bad a shape to fight, heads for the engine room to try and disable this ship. He once again tries to use energy, this time from their engines, to charge his morpher, but once again nothing happens. So, Marv just starts hitting things, and this gets the shields to drop. This lets him get a message out to the Rangers, and he updates them on the situation, and the fact that he's here with a Silver Time Force Ranger. Jack asks who that could possibly be, and Marv says that it looked like Joe, but obviously he can't be really sure. The Rangers inform Marv that they just kicked Primator out their back door, so this has got to be the real deal. Alpha informs the Rangers that the ship has recovered enough that he can teleport a single person with the energy they have, though Vesper once again volunteers to be plugged into the energy grid to provide energy for a second. Eddie locks the sensors onto a Power Ranger, a morphing grid signature. He can't be sure which one it is, but he decides to activate the teleporter anyway. Marv smacks away at the engines more, doing more damage, but then Scorpina and the Alliance leader enter the engine room. They move to attack Marv, but he is then teleported away. Eddie activates the healing charge card. Honestly, I'm not sure the players even understand that that does have the ability to be transferred, using all of his energy and 3 of Chloe's energy to heal Marv from 2 to 24. Considering the fact that he can be healed up to 36 on one use of this thing, 22 is kinda in the upper average side of what could have happened. Marv describes the Silver Time Force Ranger to the others and how he looked like Joe with his helmet off. Alpha confirms to the others that Jen did say that she was sending a special agent to come and help them. Except I hate to be technical here, but no, she didn't, and this message is on video. She said that she was sending a message to their agents in the field.
But I've sent out a message through the time stream, contacting all of our friends and allies to help us locate Marv.
She even actually says in the message that if nobody comes, the Rangers have to stay strong and remember that they are a team. Jack says that they should attack while the Alliance ship has its shields down. Marv, kind of feeling this way both personally and about the situation, says that they're really in no shape for a fight and they should re-enter the hyperstream and run away. Alpha makes it clear that this is a very distinct choice. They do not have enough energy to both attack the Alliance ship and run away if they need to. And then Joe walks into the control center. Marv pulls his blaster, still not knowing for sure. Joe says he is Joe. He's very sorry he's been gone for so long, and he's also sorry that he can't talk about where he's been. Then Joe says that he has to go. Man, poor Marv, just getting repeatedly kicked in the feelings. You see, Joe wasn't even supposed to actually interact with Marv ever at any time, probably a sensible rule about covert agents and their families, but Marv had to be rescued, so it wasn't like he could ignore the distress call. Marv comes to terms with this and hugs Joe, crying and saying that he doesn't want him to be gone for so long the next time.
You should come here earlier next time.
Joe says that he will return the second that he's done with whatever it is he has to do. He tells the other Rangers that they are doing a fantastic job, and then he leaves. Peter jokingly says that Marv tosses a tracking device onto Joe, and Malika says, hey, roll for it. But no, Dice didn't want it. Eddie reminds Marv that he has something of an instinct for auras, kind of like Bridges' ability from SPD, which is why he's been able to sense whether people were who they said they were. He assures Marv that in this case, everything felt totally right. That was Joe. Jack says that as hard as this might be for Marv, they really need to focus on their own mission for now. Alpha tells Vesper that now would be a good time for her to connect herself to the energy grid of the ship. As a matter of fact, he does the same, helping to power the ship up enough for another jump. The ship moves backwards, down, and through a very strong barrier, and ends up back in the hyperstream. Safe for the moment, the Rangers take the time to try to figure things out right now, especially why the Alliance wanted Alpha. Marv points out that the Alliance felt like they were being tracked by the Rangers and even totally fell for his ruse that they had placed a tracker on their ship. The Alliance really felt that Alpha was the key to their being tracked. Alpha says all he does is track time anomalies and take the Rangers to where those time anomalies take place. Marv then remembers that the Alliance said that they felt like the Rangers were traveling while cloaked, and that's when everything clicks for them. It's the hyperstream. The Alliance not only can't access, but doesn't even know about the hyperstream. To them, the Rangers just show up literally from nowhere. They also wonder where it is that Joe could have gone. Jack says that logically, the only place that Joe could have teleported to was right back to the Alliance ship. Oh, by the way, Joe told Marv not to follow him. That's something I kind of forgot to mention earlier, and it's another kind of indication that he may have gone right back to the Alliance ship. However, Marv points out that Joe had a far more advanced teleportation system than them, and theoretically could have gone anywhere. The Rangers also find themselves just a touch bit peeved off that there was another Power Ranger out there fighting the good fight, and Jen didn't see fit to tell any of them about this. Though Jack says that if Jen did keep that information secret, she obviously had a good reason to do so. Chloe wonders that if Marv's brother Joe, who they thought dead, was still alive and a Time Force Ranger, maybe the same thing is true of her parents. They decide to think about this later, since right now they really need to get Marv to the med bay for some much needed R&R. Well, you know, not really all that much happened this time around. All we had in this session was a video message from Jen, Marv's brother Joe still being alive, and the Silver Time Force Ranger, and the activation of Chloe's Battleizer. What a freaking ride! This session was basically all of the potential and possibility of having a Power Rangers anniversary story in the RPG setting. A Silver Time Force Ranger that's covert ops based on Jen's mission from Wild Force? Sure. Now you folks might understand what I said earlier when we talked about Jen's message about what was happening later in the session and how that was still the highlight of it, and yes, I do still mean it. The Yoshi-Joe stuff was incredibly awesome, and by the way, when Malika introduced Marv's brother as Joe-Shi, Peter had to stifle a little bit of a laugh. You see, that name was chosen intentionally because people used to call Yoshi Joshi for some reason that I didn't really catch. The character's full name is actually Joseph Shi, so that was interesting. But the video message from Jen just literally gave me chills. It was our first look at the world of Hyperforce outside of our imaginations, like I said. Jen is sitting there in her office, I would presume it's her office anyway. The Alliance and Time Force doing battle behind her. I mean, it made this world feel so much more real than it ever has, both in just showing us an actual piece of that world, and that it was actually the very first piece of the story that didn't actually take place at these 3 tables in a room. This would basically be what you would call a Marv focus episode, and he got some incredible character development. I really enjoyed how he refused to believe that Joe was Joe this time. It reflected this nearly neurotic level of frustration in constantly having his brother appear before him and then be yanked away. If this was real, he wouldn't just accept that Joe was Joe this time, especially appearing as a Power Ranger that he had never seen before. However, the focus never stayed on Marv for too long, cutting back to the other Rangers repeatedly for their battle with Primator. Which, yes, does bring us to Chloe's amazing battleizer, which makes her an even more powerful asset to the team, and it's just so nice for a Pink Ranger to have a battleizer. The show being so focused on boys, girls don't usually get many of the special power-ups. And this is another one of those points that I can only bring up because I'm so far behind, but her having this battleizer will also play into her character development in a later session. Why waste your time and mine pretending that the number is going to be anything else? A silver surprise gets a 5 out of 5. That's going to wrap up another Power Rangers Hyperforce session review. Thank you, heroes, so much as always for watching. Make sure to like the video by clicking the like button right down below. In the comments below, let me know what you thought of this session, as well as my review of it. Let me know what your favorite part was. And Thumpers, as always, make sure you check in. Let me say hello to you lovely folks. Make sure to subscribe to the channel to see all of my videos and ring that bell, get your notifications set up so you can get notified of whenever I post brand new videos just like this Power Rangers Hyperforce session review. And if you really like this video and like to toss me a little bit of tip change for the making of it, you can head over to digitaltipjar.com/OrangeRangerVid, and I greatly appreciate any support that lands in that tip jar. Until next time, heroes, may the power protect you, and go Hyperforce. So it was time for this story to let us in on just what was going on with him. With Farts working on a plan to find Marv and the Alliance. Vesper takes over driving the ship when suddenly Any of you old school Power Rangers fans will remember this, but Primator... So, there was just like one word I missed, when Primator, and it's like, nope, the whole thing just went to poop. Now, as some of you old school Power Rangers fans right remember, that was one letter that he had actually told Marv he was making for a Marv. For example, 7 out of a necessary 20, or not out of. You should really be watching either the Twitch video on demand, the split it from there. However, that's a really loud, flashy thing to do, like we saw with the King Arthur dragon. So, and farts. I spoke before about being a little bit confused about the healing charge. Nope, from the top. Alpha's response is pretty simple. There is an 8-foot monkey ranking, ending up somewhere completely random in time and space. Shoot. On that ship, Joe is attacked by putties. Marv describes the Silver Time Force Ranger to the others